The rain hammered against the windows of our small cottage in the Cotswolds, mimicking the relentless storm brewing inside me. Barnaby, a carpenter by trade, had always found solace in the simplicity of working with wood. The smell of sawdust, the feel of the grain beneath my calloused hands, it was a grounding force in a life that, until recently, felt beautifully uncomplicated. I was 43, happily married to Bronwyn for 15 years. We met at a local craft fair. She, a vibrant potter with hands as earthy as the clay she molded, and I, a shy carpenter drawn to her infectious laughter. Our life in the Cotswolds was idyllic. We had a small garden bursting with roses, a cozy fireplace that crackled merrily in the winter, and a shared love for long walks in the rolling hills. Bronwyn's pottery studio was in the converted barn next to our house, and I had my workshop on the other side. We were two artists, living and creating side by side, our lives intertwined like the roots of an ancient oak. Or so I thought. The first crack in our perfect facade appeared subtly, almost imperceptibly. Bronwyn started spending more time at the pottery studio, often working late into the night. She attributed it to a new commission, a large installation for a hotel in Bath. I understood the demands of creative work. I often lost myself in my projects, working for hours without realizing the time. But there was a shift in Bronwyn, a distance in her eyes, a coolness in her touch. She became less talkative, less affectionate. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she would brush me off, claiming she was tired or stressed. I tried to be understanding, supportive. I made her cups of tea, cooked her favorite meals, and offered to help with her commission. But my efforts were met with polite indifference. The warmth that had once defined our relationship was slowly fading, replaced by an unsettling chill. The doubts started creeping in like insidious vines, twisting around my heart, suffocating my peace of mind. I dismissed them as irrational, the product of my own insecurities. Bronwyn was my wife, my partner, my best friend. We had built a life together, a love that I believed was unbreakable. But the unease persisted, a nagging voice whispering in the back of my mind. The confirmation came unexpectedly, brutally. One Saturday morning, Bronwyn told me she was going to Bath to meet with the hotel owner to discuss the progress of her commission. I offered to drive her, but she declined, saying she wanted to go alone to focus on the details. I kissed her goodbye, a perfunctory peck on the cheek, and watched her drive away in her little blue Mini Cooper. I spent the day in my workshop, trying to lose myself in a new project. But my mind kept wandering back to Bronwyn, to the distance between us, to the nagging doubts that refused to be silenced. I decided to surprise her in Bath. I knew the hotel where her installation was going, and I thought I could meet her for lunch, a spontaneous gesture to rekindle the spark that seemed to have faded. The drive to Bath was uneventful, the countryside bathed in the golden light of a late summer afternoon. But as I approached the hotel, my stomach clenched with a sudden, inexplicable dread. I parked the car and walked towards the entrance, my heart pounding in my chest. I asked the receptionist if Bronwyn had arrived. She checked her computer and said, "Yes, Mrs. Ainsworth is in a meeting in the Regency Suite." I thanked her and walked towards the elevators, my hands clammy, my breath caught in my throat. As I reached the Regency Suite, I could hear voices inside, muffled but distinct. I hesitated for a moment, a wave of nausea washing over me. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that I was letting my insecurities get the better of me. But the nagging voice in my head was screaming, warning me to prepare for the worst. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The scene that unfolded before my eyes was like a punch to the gut, a searing brand on my soul. Bronwyn was standing in the middle of the room, locked in a passionate embrace with a man I had never seen before. His hands were wrapped around her waist, his lips pressed against hers. Bronwyn's eyes were closed, her body pressed tightly against his. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. The sounds of the room faded into a dull hum. The only thing I could see was Bronwyn, my wife, the woman I loved, betraying me in the most intimate way imaginable. They broke apart, startled by my sudden appearance. Bronwyn's face flushed crimson, her eyes widened in horror. The man, tall and handsome with a smug look on his face, stepped back, his expression hardening into defiance. "Barnaby," Bronwyn stammered, her voice trembling. It's not what you think, not what I think, I repeated, my voice hollow, devoid of emotion. Then please enlighten me. What exactly am I supposed to think when I walk in on my wife kissing another man? Bronwyn's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. The man stepped forward, his eyes blazing. Look, mate, it just happened. There's no need to make a scene, no need to make a scene, I repeated, my voice rising. You're sleeping with my wife and you're telling me there's no need to make a scene. I felt a surge of anger, a white-hot rage that threatened to consume me. I wanted to lash out, to strike the man who had dared to touch my wife. But I restrained myself, knowing that violence would only make things worse. I want you to leave, I said to the man, my voice cold and hard. Get out of here before I do something I regret. The man hesitated for a moment, then shrugged and walked towards the door, brushing past me without a word. I turned to Bronwyn, my heart aching with a pain I had never known before. How could you? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. How could you do this to me? Bronwyn burst into tears, her body racked with sobs. I'm so sorry, Barnaby, she cried. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. A mistake, I repeated, my voice laced with bitterness. Kissing another man, betraying your vows, shattering our marriage, that's your definition of a mistake. I don't know what happened, Bronwyn sobbed. I was feeling lost, confused. He was just there, lost, confused, I scoffed. We've been married for 15 years, Bronwyn. We've been through thick and thin together. How could you feel lost without talking to me? Bronwyn didn't answer, her head bowed in shame. I looked at her, at the woman I had loved and trusted, and I felt a profound sense of disillusionment. The Bronwyn I knew, the woman I had built a life with, had vanished, replaced by a stranger I no longer recognized. I can't do this, I said, my voice trembling. I can't stay married to you after this. It's over, Bronwyn, we're done. Bronwyn looked up at me, her eyes filled with panic. No, Barnaby, please, she begged. Don't do this. We can work through this. I promise I'll never see him again. It's too late, Bronwyn, I said, my voice firm. You've broken my trust, and I don't think I can ever forgive you. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving Bronwyn sobbing in my wake. As I walked away, I felt a sense of liberation, a weight lifting from my shoulders. The pain was still there, sharp and intense, but beneath it I felt a glimmer of hope. I knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but I also knew that I deserved better than a wife who would betray me without a second thought. The drive back to the cottage was a blur. The rain had stopped, and the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the landscape. The beauty of the Cotswolds seemed to mock my pain, a cruel reminder of the idyllic life I had lost. I arrived at the cottage and went straight to my workshop. I needed to immerse myself in something tangible, something real, to escape the swirling vortex of emotions that threatened to pull me under. I picked up a piece of oak, its grain rough and uneven, and began to carve. I worked for hours, oblivious to the passage of time. The rhythmic sound of the chisel against the wood was soothing, a meditative balm for my wounded soul. As I carved, I thought about Bronwyn, about our life together, about the betrayal that had shattered our marriage. I realized that I had been blind, that I had ignored the warning signs, that I had been too complacent in my happiness. I had taken Bronwyn for granted, assuming that our love was strong enough to withstand any challenge. I was wrong. The sun rose, casting a pale light through the windows of my workshop. I looked at the piece of wood I had been carving, and I realized that it had taken the shape of a broken heart. I smiled sadly, a bittersweet acknowledgement of the pain I was feeling. I knew that I had a long road ahead of me, a journey of healing and self-discovery. But I also knew that I was strong enough to face it, that I would emerge from this experience a better, wiser man. Over the next few weeks, I began the process of separating from Bronwyn. It was a painful and acrimonious process, filled with accusations and recriminations. Bronwyn initially tried to deny the affair, claiming that it was a momentary lapse of judgment. But when I presented her with evidence, text messages, emails, and witness accounts, she finally broke down and admitted the truth. She begged me to reconsider, promising to change, to make amends. But I was adamant. I had lost all trust in her, and I couldn't imagine spending the rest of my life with someone who had betrayed me so deeply. The divorce was finalized within a few months. Bronwyn moved out of the cottage and into a small flat in Bath. I kept the cottage and the workshop. the only tangible reminders of our life together. In the aftermath of the divorce, I felt a profound sense of loneliness. The cottage felt empty and silent without Bronwyn's presence. I missed her laughter, her touch, her companionship. But I also knew that I had made the right decision. I threw myself into my work, creating intricate and beautiful pieces of furniture. My art became my therapy, a way to express my pain and to find solace in the beauty of the natural world. I also started taking long walks in the Cotswolds, exploring the hidden paths and the ancient woodlands. I found a sense of peace in nature, a connection to something larger than myself. One day, while walking through a particularly secluded part of the woods, I stumbled upon a hidden grove. In the center of the grove was a towering oak tree, its branches reaching towards the sky like supplicating arms. I sat down beneath the tree and closed my eyes, feeling the energy of the earth flowing through me. In that moment, I realized that I was not alone. I was surrounded by the beauty and the resilience of nature, by the interconnectedness of all living things. I felt a sense of gratitude for the lessons I had learned, for the pain that had made me stronger, for the love that had shown me the depths of my own heart. I opened my eyes and looked up at the oak tree, its leaves rustling in the wind. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached all the way to my soul. I knew that my life would never be the same, but I also knew that I was ready to embrace the future, to create a new life filled with love, joy, and purpose. About a year after the divorce, I received a letter from Bronwyn. She wrote that she was deeply sorry for the pain she had caused me, that she had made a terrible mistake, and that she would always regret her actions. She also wrote that she had broken up with the man she had had the affair with, that he had turned out to be a selfish and manipulative person. She said that she was now living alone, focusing on her pottery and trying to rebuild her life. I read the letter with a mixture of emotions. I felt a flicker of sympathy for Bronwyn, but I also felt a sense of closure. I realized that I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own. I needed to let go of the anger and the resentment in order to move on with my life. I never saw Bronwyn again, but I often thought about her. I hoped that she had found happiness and peace, that she had learned from her mistakes, and that she was living a life that was true to herself. As for me, I continued to live in the cottage in the Cotswolds, working as a carpenter and exploring the beauty of the natural world. I eventually met someone new, a kind and compassionate woman named Meredith who shared my love for art and nature. We married a few years later and built a life together filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. I learned a valuable lesson from my experience with Bronwyn, that love is not enough. Trust, honesty, and communication are essential ingredients for a successful relationship. I also learned that betrayal can be a painful but ultimately transformative experience, that it can lead to growth, self-discovery, and a deeper appreciation for the beauty and fragility of life. And so, Barnaby, the carpenter who lost his wife to betrayal, found his way back to love and happiness, proving that even the deepest wounds can heal, and that even the most shattered hearts can be mended. Years later, I was contacted by the wife of the man Bronwyn had the affair with, a woman named Gwendoline. She thanked me profusely for inadvertently exposing her husband's infidelity. She told me that after I left the hotel room that day, she had hired a private investigator, suspecting her husband's behavior. The investigator confirmed her suspicions, and she divorced him, taking him for everything he had. She told me, with a hint of dark satisfaction, that he was now working as a car salesman in Swindon, a far cry from his previous life as a successful lawyer. Karma, it seemed, had a way of evening the score. I was strangely comforted by this news, a small measure of justice in a world that often felt unfair. It wasn't revenge I sought, but knowing that Bronwyn's affair partner had also suffered the consequences of his actions brought a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. Life moved on. Meredith and I built a beautiful life together, filled with love, laughter, and the quiet joy of shared passions. We traveled, we gardened, we created. The pain of Bronwyn's betrayal faded, replaced by the warmth of a new love, a new beginning. I often reflected on the experience, not with bitterness but with a sense of gratitude. It had been a harsh lesson, a painful awakening, but it had ultimately shaped me into a stronger, more resilient man. I had learned to value trust, honesty, and communication above all else, and I had found a love that was built on a foundation of mutual respect and unwavering support. The rain still falls on the Cotswolds, the wind still whispers through the ancient trees, but the storm inside me has long since passed. I am Barnaby, the carpenter, and this is my story of betrayal, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love.